Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Hello, and thank you for being here today for this episode of Move Like This. I am excited to be talking to a woman who I respect a lot and who you probably have heard from before, Jen Wilson, who is a partner and co-founder of Convergence Coaching. So thank you for being here today, Jen.
Thanks, Bonnie, for having me. I'm super glad to be on this podcast. I think it's great.
Thanks. Well, we are both a part of the CPA Consultants Alliance and have gotten to know each other a bit as part of that organization. And I'd kind of like to start off this conversation by having you talk a little bit about your company, Convergence Coaching, and the work you do with accounting firms and particularly the individuals within those firms.
Sure. Convergence Coaching is a leadership and management consulting and coaching firm. We do a lot of work inside public accounting firms and also with the associations that serve them. We sometimes do work with IT consulting firms, kind of from our legacy. Several of us are IT people from the beginning of our careers. So we know something about that business model as well, but mostly 95% of our work is in public accounting. And we deliver strategic planning and vision planning type services. So we work with senior leadership to help them develop sustainable firms. We love the fiercely independent firm, and we love the firm that's trying to explore how could we remain independent. But we also, kind of the core of our work and the best, funnest stuff we do is working with young people in our profession. So we do a lot of leadership development, coaching, support, building skills to be better leaders, better managers, better citizens, and we get to know all these young people, senior supervisors, managers, senior managers, young partners, and it's a true pleasure to help develop our profession by helping develop the people within it.
Yeah, that next generation of leadership is really important right now, as we'll get into in a minute. One of the things I've always liked about you is your ability to tell it like it is. I feel like you aren't shy about talking about what is good about the profession, but also what is bad, to be honest. Um, Outside of the pipeline issue that we'll talk about in a minute, what do you think are the biggest issues currently facing the profession, and what do firm leaders need to do to address them?
Bonnie, thank you for such a massively loaded question, first of all. And I like the intro. I am known for straight talk, that's for sure. And I don't want anybody to think that I don't think this profession is fantastic because I do.
Oh, yeah.
I've spent my whole career in it, right? So, and you have too. And so we know all the good stuff, and I'm not going to list that, but we're so fortunate to be in such a difference making profession. But there are a lot of issues, and we are probably facing probably the biggest crescendo of issues that I can remember in my career. And
Mm.
I'm going to pick kind of the hardest one first to mention, and that's I'm worried today. Jen Wilson is worried that organizations are not affirming their plans and directions, that they are not saying, here's where we're headed, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what we're committed to as an organization. Here's the journey we're going on. Here's our vision for the future. And if they are doing that, that they're not, their hearts aren't in it.
Hmm.
And the reason for this is because we have this super strange ambivalence that has set in based upon mergers, acquisitions, ownership structure changes, the significant influence of big money coming in with private equity, and the feeling that many of our leaders that are running firms today are caught in a trap. They don't know what to do. They don't know where they're going. They don't know if they're going to remain independent or if they're going to sell control of the entity, and move on. And their people feel it. Their people feel the ambivalence. Their people wonder, and they don't feel like they're getting the straight answer. And it's creating this limbo of sorts that many firms are operating under. Now, not all are. Some have come out as fiercely independent, and we're going to stay on our own, and here's what it's going to take to do it. And their people are in there and fighting the good fight with those firms. There's others that are acquirers, and they've made it super clear we're going to grow organically, but also through acquisition. And here's our strategy, and here's the footprint that we're seeking. And so there's a sense of purpose there. But then there's a lot of others that, I've been saying, if you went back and found old podcasts from even 10 years ago, because Convergence is in its 25th year now, so if you went 10, 12 years ago, you'd hear me say that I felt like a lot of CPA firm partners had a for sale sign quietly in their back pocket.
Hmm.
And that they were wondering, could we do better with outside buyers? And now I just don't think it's a secret for sale sign, or I think everybody can see the stick attached to the sign sticking out of the back pocket. Everybody knows that this is something people are wondering at the leadership level, and so the staff are wondering too. Clients maybe as well, but that really troubles me, that ambivalence. What do you think?
I actually think you're totally onto something there, and that what that's doing is that's leading to the pipeline issue that we're about to talk about. Is if I've spent 10 years at this firm with plans to be a partner and, have an ownership stake in that, and then you're not telling me what you have in mind, or not including me in those conversations, I'm going to think about going somewhere else where I feel like I have a little bit more control over my future. And I think that's a big thing. And honestly, that's one of the things this year with the Accounting Move Project, we're really digging into the impact that private equity is having on career paths through firms. So there are lots of people out there talking about what it means for the financial side of things and that, but what we're really looking at is how is this going to impact people who do want to rise through the ranks of a firm? How is it going to impact women and people of color in particular? Is it going to be good for them, or is it going to make things even harder? And I don't know those answers, but I plan to talk to a lot of really smart people like you and see what they're going to say and what we think's going to happen there.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned at the top that we have a bias toward firms who want to remain independent because we believe that that's a real workable business model. It's not an easy business model, but we don't think any of the choices are easy. We don't think there's the only sort of easy trap door for anybody is the idea of transacting, getting my money for my effort, my 25 years or 30 or 40 years I built this firm, and then getting a short window of having to work, and then I can bail out.
Mhm.
That's the easier role. But anybody else who isn't in that role, when a firm is merged or when a firm takes on private equity, they're not going to have it easy either, right? They're going to have to go through transitory cultural experiences and systems experiences potentially, and all sorts of things that require an adjustment. And then, depending on who the new owners are and what their primary objectives are and how transparent those objectives are, what we're all about, our purpose and the way that we treat clients and the way that we're developing our people, and all those things could change.
Yeah.
And they may be transparent about those changes, or I may just feel them and experience them because the intention is to transact later with this entity again, perhaps, especially in the case of PE, to find other buyers and flip that investment and make the money. And so it changes the game, I think, dramatically. And I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about the uncertainty that sits with so many right now.
Yeah.
And I do think that's why we're seeing more startup firms than we've ever seen before,
Mhm.
because the barrier to entry to start a firm is so low. I don't have to have brick and mortars. The technology costs are cloud-based, so they're not huge, massive investments. I can start up and usually find people who are seeking to leave their employer, so it's not too hard to bring a friend or two with me to get going. So the startup practices are very interesting and exciting to see that happening, that entrepreneurialism that we know is in our profession. It'll prevail. It'll show up. People are saying, "Well, we're going to lose all the middle firms." Oh, no, you won't. And those guys that are sitting a little under those middle firms, they're going to rise up. They're going to fill a need there. So it's kind of an interesting renaissance period, but I'm not sure that all the change is going to be positive. And I think it'll be, I think this ambivalence period is the tough part. I
Yeah,
really do.
I do too. And to add to that, you're talking about the entrepreneurial spirit and starting firms with their friends that are also kind of in a situation they're not happy about. I think in a lot of cases, clients too are going to leave these really large firms where now they're, suddenly a really tiny fish in a big pond, and saying, "Hey, I'd rather work with these people that I know, even if they may not have all the resources that I'm used to, but I trust them." I still believe that clients work with people much more than they work with firms. And, if those people are like, "Hey, I want to go start up my own thing," and now with the FTC kind of eliminating non-compete agreements, we're still going to see how that shakes out. This could be a huge boon for accountants who want to start their own firms.
It's gonna be an interesting time for sure, and so that's one big problem, and it's big, it has all sorts of opportunities, as you've just alluded to, and I did too, the possibilities that could fall out of this kind of an issue. But I am concerned about people who chose a career in accounting feeling a little like, "Now what?" Like, "Now what?" And I'd like to try to get those answers to them. I will say to every firm leader, I know it's super hard to be transparent about these kinds of things, but the more transparency that we can bring, or the more, um, you know, honesty about the possible choices you're considering,
Yeah.
the more your people will trust you. The quieter you are, the more closed door meetings you're having, the more up in the tower you feel like you're climbing into, because you don't want to talk about these things, because you don't want to disrupt the harmony maybe that you perceive. By pulling in and getting quiet and not being transparent, you're actually causing a bigger issue. Your people are, wondering, and they're talking to each other and to others and to outsiders because of it. So that would be my advice to leaders. It's always my advice to leaders in any circumstance: max transparency. People trust it, they respect it. You could say, yes, we're having these meetings. Yes, we're having these conversations. Yes, we're exploring what's happening in our marketplace. We cannot stay ignorant to it. We have to understand what other people are seeing and what they're hearing. We are having these conversations. We do not want to disrupt our entity, but we are going to learn, and we will keep you posted as we go, or something like that. Just be straight about it.
Yeah.
And the straighter we are, I think the better our people will feel.
Oh, absolutely. Well, kind of building on that, obviously, it is no secret, and we talk a lot on this podcast about that the accounting profession is in the midst of a huge recruiting and retention problem. And most firms I talk to list finding staff as their top challenge, if not top, certainly number two. So recently, the National Pipeline Advisory Group was formed to take a hard look at this problem and see what needs to be done to address it. So you are part of this group. So tell me about the origins and what you've done so far, and even some of the goals that you've set for the future.
Great. So the National Pipeline Advisory Group, or NPAG, as we have shortened it, we love an acronym in the accounting profession. So there's another one for you. NPAG, 22 diverse stakeholders from different walks of life, firms of different sizes, finance department personnel, state society representatives, regulators, academics. We have a wonderful, wonderful, rich mix of perspectives. of sort of generations represented, different backgrounds, geographies, really, really wonderful mix. So these 22 folks, I'm the facilitator at my organization. Emily Brantz on my team has been with me every step of the way. We've been facilitating this group in really, you know, creating a mission statement around pipeline and then pursuing, listening and learning to figure out how can we recommend the top most impactful strategies that will grow our pipeline. So we created a mission last July, August-ish, let's say, that our intention is to help grow the number of people that choose a career in accounting, some number of whom may go on to become licensed CPAs. So it's not let's grow CPA, it's let's grow accounting careers. And then let's see how many of those might go on to become licensed. So, that's one thing about our mission or intention. Now, most of us came to the first meeting knowing already how to solve it, which is dangerous, right? Dangerous. So I had everybody watch a wonderful Adam Grant TED talk on entrenched thinking and the idea that we had to let go of everything we already think and know and kind of clean slate and not go to solutions. We didn't start really talking solutions until probably October. So from July to October, we spent our time in 2023 reading every bit of research that there is out there on pipeline. A lot of really great stuff produced by Cal State CPA and IMA and Ernst and Young and Robert Half and IMA and the Illinois State Society and Cal State Society, and I don't know who all, many, many, many folks had some great PICPA or the Pennsylvania Institute had some super research along the way. And all that research has been evolving. Anytime new research pops out, we're reading it. And we've been data driven and inclusive as our and transparent as our primary values driving our process. So we learned a lot, an awful lot from that research and began to pin down what we called root causes. You'd like to say that the pipeline should be like a funnel. And instead, when we started looking at it, we found a colander. And so we started saying, where are the biggest holes and what's driving them? Root cause problems. And we spent a fair amount of time identifying those. And then we started creating solutions. So the solutions are in 6 areas. And I don't know if you want me to cover those or not, but one of them, as you know, is increasing the number of underrepresented minorities who come to work in accounting and stay. And to increase that number of underrepresented minorities to at least match or mirror the population of the United States. Because today, we do not mirror the population of the United States in terms of underrepresented minorities. And so that's one of the 6 themes that our solutions are focused on.
Yeah. Well, and many of the conversations I have with firm leaders are around that, around DEI and focused on what firms are doing and should do to ingrain that in their cultures to create more diverse workforces, make everybody feel included, and all of that. So, as someone with the finger on the pulse of the profession here, what are you seeing, you know, as you work with firms? Do they see DEI as a way to increase the talent pool, or are you seeing pushback since it's peak in 2020?
That's a great question, Bonnie. And in our work at Convergence in firms, we're tending to luck out or maybe intentionally weed out and focus on progressive firms committed to change, committed to build the very best firm, the most sustainable firm. And to do that, those firms either already get it or get it quickly, how crucial it is that the leaders of their organization look like and understand the client base, which is becoming increasingly diverse. And so they know this. They know how important it is that they are uh, a mirror of their clients. So they're already down the path. We're not doing a lot of selling on the idea or arm twisting inside our clients, but they're still challenged. It's not. It depends on your geography, first of all. I mean, we have clients in larger coastal cities. Their challenge is not as great. They are able to attract and retain a diverse group of people without, I would say, significant extra measures. But, clients that are in, very traditional, um, very white communities, let's say, the colleges that they've typically recruited at tend to be high Caucasian populations. Those folks have to make changes to their strategy. They have to go beyond what they've always done, think differently, make changes, and really go out there and find folks to join their team and then create an environment of inclusion. It's not just the recruiting piece. And a lot of times when people are starting to make the shift and beginning to make the investment, they're thinking, well, okay, we're just going to recruit some more folks and then we'll solve this problem. Well, not if those folks don't have people that look like them in the organization, and not if the rest of us haven't figured out how we can really be inclusive, how we can create an environment of belonging, how we can be allies and advocates, how we can be open listeners, learners, how we can recognize our own privilege, all those things that have to happen to create this, future state that we're all committed to. So those folks have further to go, and we know that segment that I just talked about, those there are lots of firms like that. And then inside those firms, there are varying degrees of commitment to this strategy.
Mhm.
I think it's easy sometimes for people to say, well, that doesn't feel like an issue for us. And, we're in this part of the country where, most of our clients are white, so we're not going to do anything about this. And, then at Convergence, we're going to sit down with them and talk about demographics, the shift in our country, but also the shift with Gen Z. And, back in the olden days, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, Bonnie, I was saying, let's talk about millennials. They're about to become the face of your clients. Well, now millennials, the oldest millennials, like 42. And when I say that, it's like, you're middle-aged millennials.
Yeah.
So like when we talk about Gen Z has a very high percentage of culturally diverse and mixed race folks. And, they say our country is graying and browning. And to think, well, not in my town. I don't know what that is. I don't know who, I don't, it's some kind of a defense mechanism or a denial mechanism that we all need to work to break through,
Yeah.
because it's just an impractical and unsustainable business model to say we're not going to figure out diversity and inclusion.
I have to agree with you. And you hit on something that I talk about quite often is the idea that okay, we're going to go out and hire people that are don't look like everybody else that's here without figuring out the inclusion and belonging and equity side of things first at the firm. And I've had many conversations with firm leaders who are like, "Yeah, we made an effort and we hired a number of, black and Latino and all these, other races in particular. And they didn't stay. So why do we even bother with that?" I'm like, "Well, what did you do to make them feel included? What did you do to create an equitable work environment?" I'm not going to stay somewhere where I don't feel comfortable, and I don't blame them for not doing the same thing. I like a lot of times you kind of have to focus on that part of it first before you even go to different colleges or start looking at different hiring opportunities, because that is an effort in futility. And frankly, it's going to hurt your reputation among those groups, because those people you hired and didn't make part of the firm or make them feel comfortable at the firm are going to go out and talk to their friends.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting as you were talking there, I was thinking about going out and hiring some people that are different from me, that's my plan. That's a tactic. And it's not a strategy, and it's not a vision, and um it's by itself, it probably doesn't work, just as you said. So that's not the place to start. The place to start is with a vision and with leadership buy-in and with an understanding of our biases and our privilege and a willingness to like stand in a mirror and look at self, which is not a one-time activity and usually guided by an expert in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And it isn't just about cultural diversity or race. It's also about religious diversity.
Mhm.
It's also about LGBTQ and the idea that that's probably one of the hardest areas for us as a profession to talk about and to um, really embrace and acknowledge that people are different and they get that they all have this wonderful unique perspective, and it doesn't matter some of these differences between us other than to enrich our environment. If we could just be open about it, transparent, and hear each other and allow all those different perspectives to be on the table and out in the room. And I think that we've just been so buttoned up. And some of this, now we're going to get in a weird spot, and I might be taking the podcast somewhere it's not supposed to go. But sometimes all of a sudden we can get here, and two things can come up in guiding this discussion. One is, ooh, this is getting squishy and soft and vulnerable, and you know, I don't want to go there. Okay, that's one. Leadership teams being like, we like buttoned up, we like professional, we like not talking about vulnerability or differences or acknowledging that we have weakness in the organization or things. Okay, so that's one piece. The other is a scarier one, which is, uh-oh, now you're getting liberal or you're getting political with us. Ooh, ooh. And so now all of a sudden we could be flying political party flags or something and feeling like that's at issue here. And I tell people all the time, listen, we have to build a business in the marketplace we're in, not the one we wish we had. And we have to do it with an openness and an honesty and try our best not to pick sides, but to just do what's going to be best for the entity in the long run, in the marketplace that we have today and the one that's coming tomorrow. And I don't know how you can guide clients to build something successful if you're not willing to engage in the discussions about the reality of our market today and tomorrow. If you want to keep kind of being nostalgic about the market we used to have or something, or try to hold on to some past-based set of guidelines that don't work anymore, and they're not going to work in the future. So anyway, I just wanted to, I think those are some barriers you as a DEI consultant and those of us who are trying to drive change in firms, that's part of the barriers we encounter is to say, oh, this isn't actually political.
No.
This is just humankind, and it's the evolution of our country, and it's the evolution of the globe, and it's where things are headed, and it's where the next generation wants to take it. And we're stewards of the current environment, but we're supposed to hand it off better to that next generation. And let's just let them guide us. And let's really let us have super honest conversations around this subject. And let's come up with a vision and a strategy for DEI. And then we can start administering tactics.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, particularly on the political bent that you mentioned is that I do not, and I know a lot of people do not see this as a political issue. Yes, there are sides being taken by political parties or individuals within political parties from time to time, but this is a human issue. We're talking about people. And to me, it's a quick way to kind of shut down a conversation you don't want to have. And in that same vein, we got to get comfortable having some uncomfortable conversations. And you know what? Somebody's going to say something that is maybe misinterpreted or uses the wrong words, and that's okay. We got to say, you know what? I understand what you're saying. This is probably a better way to communicate that, but let's talk about the issue. Let's not get caught up in the minutia of exactly how those issues are brought up or how they're described. Yeah, it can be, and you're right. Gen Z is not having it. And I love that about them. And, I have a bunch of statistics and I'll mess them up in my head, but it's something like 85% or more of Gen Z will leave a job if they do not feel like the company is delivering on the DEI promises that they made. And this job market, they can do it. They can go wherever they want to in a lot of cases. And, so if you're not paying attention to this kind of stuff, it's definitely putting you behind the curve.
You just said something really important that I kind of intellectually know this to be true, but I hadn't thought about how important it is that we all just acknowledge it. So I want to underline it if I could. You talked about how when we have to begin the conversation, when we have to have these conversations, and they could be awkward and they could be difficult, that we have to give each other the grace and the space to not know the right words
Mhm.
and not know exactly how to express how we're feeling or what we're worried about. But as facilitators, we've got to let people just get it out. Worry about later learning how to give messages better. And instead, just get the feelings out, get the thoughts and feelings out, and to facilitate that in a safe environment where those that might not like the way that was said understand and can appreciate and can give grace. And those that, that said it don't feel embarrassed or shamed because of what they said, that
Mhm.
it's heard and acknowledged. So I think that's a real important skill that we have to find in the facilitators who will guide firms in this conversation. The other thing that I wanted to say to you, Bonnie, is that you know I you know that I one of my best and most significant role models and leadership coaches was my mother, Della B. And my mother used to say, I love everyone. And, when I was younger, I didn't totally get that. I didn't get, and maybe I don't, maybe I'll never fully grasp it, but I do feel it. And I try to tell firm leaders if we can come from love, of each other and of the entity and of our clients and of our community, if we can love, we can solve anything. And if we, can even like performance issues in staff members, if you're going to performance manage somebody, you've got to love them into getting better. And that there isn't any more powerful transformative way of being as a leader. Anything's possible inside that. And I think that that has to be at the core of any DEI strategy. And if an organization can come from inclusivity and wanting everybody to feel loved and that they belong and that they can win and that we can win together, I mean, that is amazing. And I think it's possible. So, I mean, I see it happening, but I also believe that there are a lot more organizations that can get there. And the other thing is, our young people will lead us.
Mhm.
And I tell people my age, we were the young people and we wanted a lot of change. And some of it was automation, that just didn't exist. But we wanted flexibility and we wanted a bunch of stuff. And we didn't appreciate the people holding us back. And
Mm.
I started this business, and I've got a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs too. We did it for a reason, and we did it because we weren't being heard. And what we knew was possible was not being supported by the establishment. And so I just try to caution my peers from being the establishment.
Yeah.
Please stop that. Let's stop that. Let's be the stewards, and let's be the coaches, the shepherds, the guides on the journey of these young people, and try to enable what they can see is possible.
And be open to learning from each other. That goes both ways. And yeah, I actually really like that approach. And I think if you approach things from that perspective, it's going to automatically be inclusive. You've kind of taken care of that on some levels. If we can see each other as people with potential and flaws and all those kinds of things, rather than, cogs in a wheel.
Yeah. And I know some people hear this and they're like, but not all people are good and not all people have the right intentions and you can't just love them into better. Well, then use your management skills and manage the people that don't fit your culture or can't perform out of the business. I mean, we're not saying don't manage your organization or run the business intelligently, but how it feels to work at your firm is what matters.
Yeah.
And then the management stuff, there's a lot of best practices, and you can use those best practices to manage the exceptions that aren't working in the firm.
Yeah, I agree. I'll have one more question that you could probably talk about for 2 weeks. And then we'll go into just some fun questions to close with.
Okay.
But what advice do you have for firms that are looking to win the war on talent? How are they going to stand out and be the employer of choice?
Mm. Well, I'm going to start with a micro strategy, and that is know and love your people and enable what they envision for themselves. So the people that work there today matter,
Hmm.
and we usually don't know them well enough, and we haven't really dug in there to find areas of true connectivity between us, and to understand, what do you dream of, what are your hopes, what are your fears, and how can I help facilitate the stuff that you'd like to see happen, and help you avoid the things that won't. So get in there with your people, assign shepherds, really know them, really care about them, really help them get where they want to go. And sometimes that could be out of your firm to become a firefighter. Sometimes it could be out of the tax department because I really, really want to do CAS work, or I want to move to audit or whatever. And I know that selfishly you don't want me to, but that's what I want. You've got to enable that for your people or they'll leave. So, and include them. Include your next gen in everything. They should be part of your vision planning, part of your strategic planning, part of your feedback loop process. Listen from them, learn from them. So that would be my number one. Number two would be figure out what makes you unique, special, and different. What really is the essence of what's different about you. And sometimes that is specialty niches that you serve. Sometimes it's um, the way it feels at your firm is super fun, or the way it feels at your firm is very service minded, or there are these unique attributes that we see when we go into firms that we just, because we get to compare a lot of them. So we're like, huh, that's super interesting. You guys are unique that way. But we realize they're not telling that story. So, figure out your USD, as we call it, unique, special, and different, and then make sure all of your people are trained to express it. And so that when we're out there in the marketplace talking to people, we can tell them, clients and prospective employees, our USD, and they could either be, it could appeal to them and they'll say, oh, those are my people, or it won't. And then we won't make mistakes perhaps in hiring. And then I think my third piece of advice would be tell a better story about what's wonderful in this profession, and stop over focusing on how hard it is.
Mm.
We just love to talk about how hard we're grinding, and how understaffed we are. and how many hours we're working. Trim your client base and commit to reduce overwhelm, and certainly quit talking about it. Quit writing about it in social media. If it's the truth, fix it for real, because there's nobody that needs to be, your business doesn't need to run you. If your business is upside down like that, ladies and gentlemen, it's because you're not running it. It's running you. So flip that, but figure out what is joyful and difference making and incredible about this work that you do, and start talking about that to everybody. I'd love you to go out in middle schools and high schools and colleges and community colleges and tell the story of what you're doing. And yes, you can admit that you work hard sometimes. I'm not trying to have anybody deny that to get something great, sometimes we have to put in the effort. Gosh, could we stop making it sound horrible? And because it isn't. We love our clients, and some of us love the puzzle of the work,
Hmm.
and we love the technology forward nature. We love to make a difference. We love to have fun. We love our teams. There are plank challenges in the hallway happening, or whatever it is. There's all kinds of cool stuff. We just don't give enough amplification to that. So that would be my third request. If you want to be an employer of choice, tell a better story.
Yeah. Not only about your firm, but as you said, about the profession as a whole. Because it's, yeah, this woe is me kind of thing doesn't make anybody want to join it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so closing, I got a couple little questions for you here that I'm always just curious to hear the answers to. So when you were 5 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
uh, the president of the United States. And then I found out that because I was a naturalized citizen born on a military base in Germany, that that wasn't allowed. And I was blown away, super disappointed for about 5 minutes, probably.
Yeah,
And then I moved on. But that was my first vocational plan.
I like it. And you're actually not the first person I've interviewed on here that said that. That's pretty cool. If you were given the chance to travel anywhere for free, scheduling, all those things that keep us from traveling anywhere we want to are taken out of the picture, where would you go and why?
I would go lay down on a beach in Fiji, overwater hut kind of thing, and read books and um, swim and lay in the sun with my husband.
That sounds heavenly. Absolutely. And if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
That's hard. I would time travel. Yeah, I would go back and see my grandparents probably, and just I'm not a big history buff. I do enjoy history, but I wouldn't go back so I could stand on the sidelines and watch a bunch of historic things happen. I don't think, but I'd like to go back and see people who are gone.
Yeah, that's lovely. Um, a lot of people kind of have that desire, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's a scene in Peggy Sue Got Married where she goes back and she gets a call from her grandmother, and I just love it.
Yeah, that's a sweet moment. I actually remember that movie.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. This has been a tremendous conversation and hopefully give some ideas and advice to people that are out there looking for it. And I really appreciate your time, Jen.
Bonnie, thanks for having me, and thanks for engaging in such important work. Keep it up, please. We all need you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buell Russick, and until next time, keep moving forward.